It is time for Football at 4, and the question we're answering today is very simple. Will Tetairoa McMillan, 8th overall pick, Carolina Panthers, lead the team in receiving yards? Now, this was a question that was asked to me earlier this week. It's a question I've seen debated on social media, and the reason why I wanted to bring it up again is because I don't even know how this is a question. You're darn right Tetairoa McMillan better be leading the Panthers in receiving yards. There is a gloss over the Panthers season this past year from the last game and from a few drives at the end of games against good teams that has really made people think that what was on the field last year was better than it was. Maybe it's because we were comparing everything to like the first month of the season that was horrendous. It makes the last third of the season seems like we were watching the greatest show on turf with Warner and Holt and Bruce and Falk and Prohl and everybody else. It wasn't that. Will Tetairoa McMillan lead the Panthers in receiving yards is not a high bar to jump over. Do you know who led the team in receiving yards last year?
Adam Thielen.
With 615 yards. Now, we only played 10 games, but maybe that's because this past year was the oldest wide receiver in the NFL by 2 years, and he's still the oldest wide receiver in the NFL by 2 years, and I wouldn't expect him to play a billion games this year either.
Line of security blanket for Bryce Young last year.
Xavier Legette was second in the team, played in darn near every game. He didn't have 500 yards. Jalen Coker was third on the team. He didn't have 500 yards. Deontay Johnson was fourth on the team.
Yeah, remember that guy?
He had 357 yards. It's like 2 games that he basically played any kind of effective football in. This, meaning the Panthers, was not a good passing offense last year. The pass blocking was not good. The offensive line is talented, and they run blocked very well. Their pass blocking was not good. The quarterback play on a majority of drives was not good enough. That's Bryce and Andy Dalton for most of the season. The wide receivers were not good enough. Now, they improved throughout the season, which was good to see. And I think that's why there's this gloss that this is suddenly going to be a 4,000 yards passing offense. Because they got better, but getting better is not linear. It's not just a straight line up and they keep going. It's not like, well, they were a 4% as far as quality of offense in game 1, and by the end of the year, they were a 50%. So by the end of this year, they're going to be 150%. I don't even know if that math adds up. My point is, it doesn't just keep going. There's going to be snags. Players don't suddenly just get better and better and better forever. Spending the 8th overall pick, using the 8th overall pick on a wide receiver made sense because it was needed. He should lead the team in receiving yardage on volume alone. He is the one to force the ball to. He is the one to make Bryce Young right. He is the one that is the safety blanket and the big play guy. Now, I think Xavier Legette can do some things. He runs a 4.39 40. You need that. I think Adam Thielen, when healthy, big when, can do some things. He can get open. He can be a wily vet. Hunter Renfrow, same thing if he's back to what he was in Oakland. I'm not saying everybody else stinks. I'm saying there's not a lot of 1,000-yard receivers on this team. Now, they may have been in the past, right? Adam Thielen has been in the past. Hunter Renfrow has been in the past. But that's not what they are now. Tetairoa McMillan is the 8th overall pick in the draft. If he's not 850, 900 yards right out the gate, just on volume, just on him getting the number one read on so many plays, something is wrong. I actually think Arizona's college team didn't do enough of that, didn't do a good enough job of, especially against the teams that were better, of just saying, listen, if everybody's covered, we're throwing it to T-Mac. One of his strengths, actually, is that he has go-go gadget arms, and he's kind of open even when he's not. Let him use that as a strength.
Feels like he could be a true third down receiver for the Panthers this year.
He's a number 1 wide receiver. And if he's not, you drafted him way too high. But you got to find out. You have to. If 600 yards leads your team in receiving, ever, you got issues. And it makes sense that you would look at those issues and go, ooh, our offense is sick. How do we get the medicine? We need a number one. Let's go draft one super high in the draft. There you go. Now you have the medicine. You got to use it. Should he lead the Panthers in receiving yards? I mean, barring an injury to McMillan, absolutely.
It's a problem if he isn't.
Barring injury to McMillan, it's a problem if he isn't. The questions you should be asking are, is he going to lead all rookies? The question you're going to be asking is, how much attention does he draw? The questions you should be asking is, how much does him leading you in receiving, leading you in targets, leading you in catches, leading you in touchdowns, open things up for everybody else? Because that's the only way you get to a 4,000-yard passer, which doesn't happen that often. I know. Bryce in the passing offense looked good against Atlanta. I know they looked good in end-of-game situations against the Chiefs and against the Eagles and a few other specific situations. But look at the big picture. Bryce isn't top 20 in most stats. And that's what you're building off of. That's what you're building off of. And if your argument is, well, Thielen can do that, yeah, okay. If Thielen stays on the pace that he was on for like the first 7 games, he would have been a 1,000-yard receiver. But it's kind of going back to what we were talking about with Brent Burns. It's just unlikely. You'd be going against history to depend on somebody that old to not tire out or not kind of peter out their production as the season goes on or get hurt. Meanwhile, you have a 6'4 plus, like 6'4 and change wide receiver that I mean, based on video, can kind of get in and out of breaks better than somebody his size should. If he can separate at the NFL level, which is always the question, if he can separate at the NFL level, 1,000 yards as a rookie is not out of the question. I'm not putting that as the expectation, but I'm saying it's not out of the equation. 800 is something you probably need to be thinking about as a floor if things go your way, if he's healthy. So ask the right questions. And by the way, if his numbers aren't that high, right? If he's not 900 yards receiving or more, 850 or more, I think that's probably a Bryce problem or an offensive line problem or something else, and that's going to hold back all of the receivers. If there's a world where like Xavier Legette has 730, Adam Thielen has 800, Jalen Coker has 700, and McMillan has 500, that's a massive issue.
You might be relying on the run game a little too much at that point.
That's a massive issue. If there's a world where McMillan has 700 and that leads the team, that's probably a Bryce problem, probably an offensive line problem, probably a play calling problem. That's not Tetairoa McMillan as long as he's doing his job, but still he'd be leading the team in receiving yards in that case. I don't think it's outlandish. Matter of fact, I think it's outlandish to do the opposite. To draft someone 8th overall and then ask questions like, should he be catching more passes or more yards than the undrafted rookie Jalen Coker from last year? Should you draft somebody 8th overall, can he outproduce the 35, 36-year-old we have on the roster? Those aren't the questions you should be asking. If you are, then you drafted the wrong guy. Compare him to other really good, will he have more than Mike Evans as a rookie? Will he have more than Drake London as a rookie? Like, you can compare him to those other highly drafted guys because that's the neighborhood he lives in. If Xavier Legette has more receiving yards than Tetairoa McMillan, you drafted Tetairoa McMillan way too early. Way too early. I thought you drafted Xavier Legette a little too early, and he was picked at the end of the first. Traded up for him.